What is going on, everybody? Welcome everybody into the Aftermath on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by Believe. My name is Joe Miller. I'm the voice of the Aftermath, and you can find me on Twitter at Joe Miller Wired. Please do me a favor. Please like, please subscribe, whatever platform you are viewing this vidcast on right now. Please do me a favor. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Help us get our numbers up. Do us a favor and tell a friend if you're enjoying the content that is being brought to you on a daily basis. Sometimes, like days like today, multiple times a day, as we're going to be double stacked both here on Victory Tuesday as well as tomorrow on Victory Wednesday. We'll get more into programming in a little bit, but please like, please subscribe, please hit the notify button. Please tell a friend if you are listening to this podcast or this in podcast form in post. Whether it's on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or, I don't know, Google or wherever you are getting your favorite podcast, please also like, please subscribe, do us a favor. Please leave a review and comment. But like we always say here, at least I always say here on the Overreaction Sports Network, whether this podcast finds you around a cup of coffee, at the gym with your AirPods in, on the drive to work, or watching me live right now, let me just say one more time as I take a sip of my coffee. Welcome. It is so good to have you. Before we get into the aftermath of what happened last night, I want to take just a moment to introduce you to my good friend Joe Green over at Big Bear Barbecue Supply Store in Depew, New York. The only supply store, barbecue supply store in all of Buffalo. Big Bear Barbecue Supply Store. You can find them at 425 French Road in Depew, not in Cheektowaga. Here's the thing. If you put into your little GPS finder there on whatever phone you use, 425 French Road, and Cheektowaga, New York comes up because there's same addresses like addresses, it's going to take you to the wrong place. But 425 French Road, Depew, New York. Joe Green at Big Bear Barbecue Supply. Unique local and national rubs and sauces that you cannot get anywhere else in Buffalo. Yes, he does carry the standard meat church and stuff like that, but he's got like hardcore rubs and some other ones that are, believe it or not, better than just about any other rub that I've ever tasted. He also carries the Q42 products. So if you are a big Grills Mafia fan, Q42 fan, he carries those products. He's got smokers. He's got pellets. Again, he's got sauces. He's got apparel and clothing. He also offers classes. So if you have not yet ventured into this thing that grown, what's the word, men like myself, the hobby that we find ourselves in, which is making, smoking, everything that we can find, from meats to pickles to cream cheese, bacon, turkeys, chicken, you name it. I've smoked it, and I'm sure that those of you that are experienced smokers and barbecue guys have as well. But if you're looking to get into this thing, you've wanted to try it, but there's a huge investment when you're talking about buying a smoker. Here's the thing. Joe does offer classes. You're going to walk away from that class getting full-on knowledge of how to smoke whatever it is that's on the menu, or for that class. You're going to walk away with a recipe. You're going to get to try all the food. You're going to get to be a part of it and ask him questions one-on-one. And here's the thing. If you go into Big Bear Barbecue Supplies, if you walk in there and say, hey, Joe Miller sent me from the Overreaction Sports Network, you're going to get 10% off of your order. And you're also going to get a door prize. Again, Big Bear Barbecue Supply, 425 French Road in Depew, New York. Run on down there and see my guy, Joe Green, at Big Bear. You will not regret it. Yeah, super excited to have him a part of our team. The Buffalo Bills, our Buffalo Bills, are currently 4-2. First place in the AFC East with 2 divisional wins in the bank already, after beating the Miami Dolphins earlier this season and then the Jets on Monday Night Football. You know, it was an ugly game, and we have those every year. And I'll be honest with you, A win is a win is a win. Jerry talked about it. There's no currency like a win. Doesn't matter how you win. It's all about just getting the W. Nobody goes back and asks you, not only at the end of the year, but even years later, well, how did that game look? How did you win that game? The reality is winning is the most important thing. And there was a lot of good things in this football, as we discussed yesterday on the Overreaction post-game show with Jerry and John. A lot of good stuff in this football game. And there were some things in this football game that were relatively frustrating. The collective, pulse and, heart rate and anxiety level of Bills Mafia through the second half of this football game probably was measured on some Richter scales, because I was nervous more so than I've been in the past. It just was not a game that you wanted to see them drop, whether it's the AFC East portion with the Jets going into the Jets, where the Bills have had trouble facing Aaron Rodgers, all of the stuff that goes on between these two teams. They don't like each other. The Jets firing Robert Saleh, and there was a lot of conversation on that too in the broadcast. Oh, look at how this offense looks with the new coaching staff. Robert Saleh wasn't coaching the offense. I don't think Robert Saleh was pounding the table and pining for Nathaniel Hackett to be the offensive coordinator. I get that Woody Johnson, the owner of the Jets, is going to do whatever Woody Johnson does. And Bill Belichick said that they've got if you watch the Manning cast or caught up on it, he said the Jets in the last 10 years have had about a 30% win percentage. Meanwhile, Woody Johnson basically does what Woody Johnson does, which is ready, fire, aim. I'm not necessarily sure that Robert Saleh needed to be fired, but the way the broadcast was kind of pining on about how great the new coaching staff was doing and how good the team looked was a little bit strange to me, because the problem for that team has been offense. But getting back to all of that conversation, it was just a team that I wanted to beat. It was a team that we needed to beat. This football team, after dropping 2 games to the Ravens and the Texans, the Buffalo Bills were desperate. I feel like the fan base was desperate, as much as, we expected to be 3-3, maybe 2-4 when we looked at this schedule before the season started. We knew this was going to be the beginning, the front half, specifically this 3-game road stretch, was going to be very difficult. But this was a team I just couldn't imagine coming into today, Tuesday, after this Monday Night Football game, and just being in a situation where, the Bills are 2-4, reeling, like seriously reeling, dropping, you win 3 in a row, then you lose 3 in a row. It begins to just put all the philosophies of the season and who you're trying to be in question. So much needed win. And that's funny too, when I talk about it, or even when I make the statement, questions about who this team wants to be, because in my opinion, they either still, and they don't know who they want to be, or they have no idea. This team has no idea how to be who they want to be. I have been on the side of give me 2020 Josh Allen and this Buffalo Bills offense for a very, very long time. But you watch what Ray Davis did and the commitment to the run. For the first time in 6 games this season, the Bills didn't flirt with the run, have great success, and then completely get away from it. They committed to the run by and large in the first half. They did get away from it a little bit in the second half, but they still committed to running. And it's hard not to feel like that is the recipe for success for this football team right now. Have Josh throwing somewhere between 210 to 270 yards a game, high completion percentage, good throws, not have to wear the Superman cape, the hero cape that we're so used to seeing him have to wear for complete games, sometimes stretches of games. Put it on when you need it, Josh. And he did that in this football game. He pressed a little bit in the second half for a couple of series, but it wasn't anything super detrimental. And obviously the Jets adjusted, and that's a good defense that the New York Jets have. But I wanted to take a look at the rest of the Bills schedule, and I actually forgot to pull it up. So 2 seconds real quick. But the Buffalo Bills sitting at 4-2. They host the Titans this week in Buffalo, which that game, no game is easy. Every win in the NFL is difficult. But that's a team that is not playing well right now. So the Bills have the Titans at home this week. Then they travel to Seattle to play the Seahawks, which are a team that scares me. Geno Smith can beat you, right? Kenneth Walker. They've got guys, DK Metcalf, on that football team that can beat you. I'm going to be in Seattle for that football game. Excited. Hopefully get to connect with some of the mafia out there on the Northwest coast. Then the Dolphins then on November 3rd come to Buffalo. There's an expectation that Tua is going to return for that football game. We'll see, but if he does, the weather is not going to necessarily play a factor unless the wind is blowing in that football game. But when you look at Titans, Seahawks, Dolphins, and then the Bills go to Indianapolis, the next quarter of games, the next 4 games, there's winnable games in here. Titans, yes. Seahawks, yes. The Dolphins, yes. The Colts, yes. Best case scenario, the Bills find themselves at 8-2 out of the next 4 games. Then the Chiefs come to Buffalo November 17th. The Chiefs are always a tough game. The Bills have had very good success against the Chiefs in the regular season. It's obviously the bugaboo of the playoffs. I don't need to tell any of you watching this podcast or listening to it. Probably the toughest game on the schedule, potentially December 1st, the 49ers in Buffalo. However, it's an 8:20 game, primetime game. 49ers coming West Coast to East Coast. It is going to be chilly. Not that it doesn't get necessarily cold in San Francisco, but not quite like it does here in Buffalo. There could be snow in that game. Then the Bills travel to LA for the 8th for the Rams game. Bills-Lions. Mark your calendar. There's a football game that I'm probably most anticipating from now until that time, December 15th. It's that football game, the Bills versus the Lions in Detroit. And for a lot of you that have watched football this weekend, Aiden Hutchinson, elite defensive end for the Lions, is out for the season with a broken leg. And then December 22nd, Patriots at Bills. That should be a dub. You'd hope, unless Drake May turns into a superstar between now and then. Jets at Bills, December 29th, McKenna's birthday. And then Bills at Patriots, January 5th. So that's kind of a look at the rest of the season. The back half of this schedule is much easier than the 6-game stretch that we just went through, that the Bills have come out 4-2 on. You've got to have a pretty good expectation. And that was actually proven yesterday as well, when they were showing just percentages of like who could win the AFC East if they win, and the Bills percentage was super high. But anyways, coming out of this football game, no injuries that we know of to speak of. I don't believe anybody. I listened to Sal Capaccio this morning on WGR. He said from his recollection, he didn't see anybody go into the blue tent. That's good. Guys that came back, Khalil Shakir was 21 or 26 snaps in the game, had 2 crucial catches, came out well. You'd expect that he's going to play this coming weekend against the Titans. Taron Johnson obviously had a monster game. Terrell Bernard had a monster game. Taylor Rapp had a monster game. So now it's just a matter of hoping that we can get some of these other guys back, right, that we're still missing. And my expectation is we should. Hopefully we'll kind of see some movement on the injury front. We'll see that injury report get a lot shorter, get James Cook back and some of the others. But even when you look at this football game against the Jets last night, you've got to highlight Ray Davis. You've got to highlight that offensive line. You've got to highlight Taylor Rapp. You've got to highlight Taron Johnson and Josh Allen, the way that he played. Efficient, 76% completion, no interceptions, 3 touchdowns, 2 in the air, 1 on the ground. Very efficient. Just did what he needed to do and largely was in command of this whole game. The game never seemed to really get away from him. He never really seemed to be pressing much. There was a couple, again, series or downs where the Bills were second and short-ish or medium, third and medium, and he was throwing the ball 30 yards down the field. It's just who he is. That's just what Josh Allen is going to do. If he's got a guy running down the field 40 yards, he's going to throw it to him, regardless of the situation. So, but very, very, very good football game. Now, some of the things that I want to talk about. And I'm not going to keep you super duper long, I don't think, as I'm 14 minutes into this thing already. Once again, when you look at this game and you step back away from it and you kind of surmise what happened, when you look at the first quarter, the second quarter, the points that were scored, going into the halftime with the Hail Mary, third quarter, fourth quarter, the penalties, the Buffalo Bills just make things hard. It's just what they do. And I think that as Buffalo Bills fans, we have probably always known this. They just make it's I don't know how you get past it. I don't know what you have to do. You know, they had an opportunity to go into halftime up 20-10 with a chance to double dip on the other side. The Bills are very good at going in before halftime and scoring if they get the last possession. It's something that they do. That's an easy button for them. They do that very, very well. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen, right? They do go down and score, and then they allow that Hail Mary pass. It's 20-17. They come out at halftime, and they struggle to put points on the board in the second half. The penalties, small defensive mistakes at what we would call not great times, and then obviously drop passes, missed assignments at important times on offense. There were two penalties called on the Bills offense, formation penalties, because Spencer Brown was not covered, basically, which effectively means that somebody was lined up wrong and nobody caught it. So Allen didn't catch it and call a timeout or tell somebody to get over there. Nobody in the booth watching down from the top caught it. Like basic NFL football offensive stuff. You've got to have somebody cover up the tackle on both sides of the line. It's the way that it is. Coach on the sideline, none of the coaching staff caught it. Spencer Brown didn't catch it. Not that he should, but just simple mistakes. They do everything that they can do to effectively make things hard. And I may have said this on the post-game show last night. I often wonder, the Buffalo Bills did something that I'm not saying that they're the only ones who have done. I think there was another team or two that have done it, but the Bills hired, and it was highlighted on the broadcast yesterday in this game. The Bills hired a former head referee to be on the Bills staff. They showed him on the broadcast, John Perry, to basically situationally help McDermott, who has never been good with challenges. That's the key point of what I'm about to ask you, or what I'm about to bring up. McDermott recognizing I've never been good with challenges. My staff has never been good with challenges. We seem to lose more than we win, or we don't throw the challenge flag when we need to. So the Buffalo Bills do a very smart thing. They go out and they hire an NFL referee. They put him on staff, and they're like, hey, we want you to be here on game day, and we want you to review the film. We want you to take a look at what's happening, and we want you to tell us if we should challenge or not. And we saw it kind of come up in this game when Aaron Rodgers fumbled the football, and they called it a forward pass, an incomplete forward pass. And the rules state, for those that weren't necessarily paying attention, the tuck rule is gone, which was the play that kind of created Tom Brady and sent them to the Super Bowl against the Raiders in the snow a million years ago. Now, if the ball is vertical and then comes out, so the quarterback goes to throw, has this throwing motion, goes to throw, and then thinks better of it and is pulling it back, so he's coming down, he has to complete that motion. If the ball goes vertical and then the ball pops out, it's a fumble. It's not an incomplete pass. Well, that's exactly what happened. So John Perry in this situation was signaling McDermott, you need to have a conversation and challenge this if you can, because as per the rules, that's a fumble, and the Bills recovered. All that to say this. So Sean McDermott, we have seen, and this staff, and who knows if he thought of it himself or if somebody else gave him the idea, realized I've got a deficiency in my leadership in this area. So I'm going to do something abnormal, and I'm going to hire an NFL referee to be on my staff to tell me when to challenge plays, right? Or not to challenge plays. And when I look at the situation as it pertains to this Hail Mary, I'm sitting on the couch, and it's hard for me to fathom that all of us weren't thinking the exact same thing. The guy that's on the field that you're playing against, Aaron Rodgers, is one of the best Hail Mary quarterbacks that the NFL has ever seen. And they showed him on the broadcast. Hail Mary, Hail Mary, Hail Mary. He just has a knack for it. Luck, skill, whatever it is, errors on defense, however you want to chalk it up, the universe, whatever it is, Aaron Rodgers has just always been good at Hail Marys. Every single person watching this football game, apparently, except the Bills head coach and their coaching staff, defensive coaching staff, in that moment, everybody else is like, the Hail Mary's coming. Like, the broadcast knew the Hail Mary was coming. Everybody knew the Hail Mary was coming, except for Sean McDermott, who admitted on his way off the sideline at halftime, we were covering the sidelines to prevent a field goal. We were covering this 8 seconds left in the game, half. We were covering the sidelines to prevent the field goal. So this is my question. At what point is it possible, is it something that is considered that Sean McDermott and his staff bring in what I would call a situational advisor? Because 13 seconds, 12 men on the field, Hail Mary, like the amount of times he calls timeouts at bad times, at ends of halves or ends of games to get a feel or a look, because he wants to slow down and assess what the opposing team's defense is looking like or doing, so that he can get a better handle on what he thinks they should do. And then inevitably it fails. It seems like it fails more than it succeeds as far as that strategy. At what point in time does he have somebody upstairs somewhere that's on the staff that is just tuned into, glued in, and knows and has a pulse for football games and understand situational awareness is not something that everybody has in the NFL from a coaching standpoint. And it's not wrong to say that somebody isn't great at it, that somebody's strength is not situational awareness. There are some guys that have great situational awareness and can see what's going to happen or what is about to happen or what the opposing team is going to do, but they might be horrible at coaching guys up or motivating guys or connecting with guys. Sean McDermott is great at connecting with players. He's great at leading men. He's great at just being a leader inside of the building that guys trust and want to play for. I can tell you personally that in the past 2 weeks of text messages that I've gotten from players that have been in this building or family members from players that have been in this building that are like, man, so-and-so or I would just love to come back to Buffalo. Like we were just talking, me and blank, how much we would love to come back to Buffalo to be a part of this franchise. And these aren't necessarily guys on losing franchises. There's just something about Sean McDermott and his character and who he is as a coach that he connects with guys. Guys want to play for him. Guys love him. It's just we've heard it. We know it. But at the same time, he's horrible. And I love Coach. He's just not good with situational awareness. So is it even possible? Like, can the Buffalo Bills hire a guy that's a situational advisor that calls down and says, this is what you need to be looking for, be prepared for it, defend it this way? I don't know. I've never heard of it. Maybe this exists. Maybe there's teams that have done this. It just seems like a league where not only do they try to cover every single base they can, and at times create positions for people when you hear like, passing coordinator and you hear like weird things like that. It's like, oh, they found a guy that they like that's really good at this one thing that they recognize they're not good at. And they hired that guy to do that one thing to make them better in that one space. I actually said this weekend, if Doug Peterson gets fired from the Jaguars, the Bills, I think, should immediately hire him as the passing game coordinator and like the assistant head coach. He's got a Super Bowl. He's a former quarterback. He understands the game. He's coached, obviously, a lot of different quarterbacks. He's been in this league a long time. So that's kind of like that same thing. Like, we need help in the passing game. So we're going to hire Doug Peterson, who gets fired, as our passing game coordinator, or maybe next year, to help Joe Brady and Josh develop some of these routes to work on getting these guys open. Anyways, all that to say this, is it possible for the Buffalo Bills to consider hiring, I think they should, what I would call a situational advisor? 23 minutes into this show. Where do I want to go next? I wanted to potentially read you guys some tweets. I'm going to try to hit 2 quick topics. No guarantee. My vision for the show is for me not to be on for 40 minutes, 45 minutes. I'd like to get through just some aftermath thoughts of like, now that it's settled in me and I've seen it and my emotions have settled where I'm at. So we'll see how that goes as the season wanes on. Josh Allen, in my opinion, has yet to, and people aren't going to like this. Maybe you will. I don't know. Josh Allen has yet, in my opinion, to elevate the play of wide receivers around him. I'm going to let that sit for a minute. Or I should say a second. Josh Allen has yet to elevate the play in his career of the wide receivers around him. Pick a wide receiver that has potentially played for any quarterback named Manning, Peyton, Brady, Mahomes, Rodgers, Favre. like think of those quarterbacks, those all-world Marino. Think of those Elway. Think of those all-world quarterbacks. The guys that were, if you play fantasy football, fantasy must-haves. Gotta have, right, a wide receiver that is playing with this quarterback. I can think of a ton with Brady. I can think of several outside of Marvin Harrison with Manning, guys that were effectively elite when they were with that quarterback, and when they left that quarterback, their star kind of went out. They vanished. When you look at situations where it's not just one guy, where wide receivers, like there's an entire wide receiver room, all the guys in a room, and Aaron Rodgers was huge for this, specifically with tight ends. Aaron Rodgers was like the king of tight ends in Green Bay, where you pick a dude, call him Joe Miller, 6 feet tall, 230 pounds, not amazingly athletic, but I'm in a Packers jersey and I'm playing tight end for the Packers, and all of a sudden I'm going to get 100 targets and probably 60 receptions or 70 receptions and like 7 touchdowns. And then I go on to the next team because everybody thinks I'm great. And meanwhile, I'm not. What it was is Aaron Rodgers just had a way of elevating my play. I feel like Josh Allen struggles here. He has not done this. The guys that have come in and done very, very well were good wide receivers on their own account. When the Bills, and still to this day, when the Bills have brought in and continue to bring in guys that are marginally good wide receivers, they still struggle with Josh Allen. Josh Allen has a hard time trying to find them. Josh Allen has a hard time completing passes to them. Josh Allen has a hard time to integrate them into the actual game to where there's a rhythm and a flow, Allen Lazard type stuff. Allen Lazard, MVS type stuff, right? Guys that vanish when they're not with potential soon-to-be Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Allen Lazard is not a great wide receiver unless he's catching passes from Aaron Rodgers. Why is that? Well, Aaron Rodgers elevates his game. It's been 7 years for Josh Allen. It's been 7 years. He's had some great wide receivers. Cole Beasley, Emmanuel Sanders, John Brown is maybe one of those guys that Josh potentially elevated, but John kind of had that game in him before he got to Buffalo. It's just, I think from a situational standpoint, there was somebody in front of him or two guys always in front of him, and he never got to be that wide receiver 1-ish or marginal 2 that when he got to Buffalo, he got to be. Everybody else that's come through this building that maybe had an opportunity, had an ability, had an inkling of enough talent that they could be dominant with the right quarterback has not really worked out. Again, it's been 7 years for Josh Allen, and we're watching it again in this situation where Josh is struggling to find a guy unless they've got, a special talent, and Khalil Shakir looks like he's becoming that guy. We're all going from Shakir being a 5th round draft pick, 10 receptions in his rookie year, to kind of a breakout season last year and coming on at the end, to now realizing that Shakir actually could very well be a very, very good wide receiver, that if he did end up on another football team, he'd still be Khalil Shakir. Kind of like Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis looks exactly like Gabe Davis in a Jaguars uniform. At the end of the day, Josh Allen should be in right now his prime or entering into his prime. And elite quarterbacks produce wide receivers, and it just doesn't feel like Josh has done that very well. The last topic in the aftermath, this episode of the aftermath, and I'm going to get you guys out of here. Tyler Bass, real quick on this, man, it's tough because we get so attached to these players and we like them, right? Coach said after this football game, Tyler knows that he needs to make those kicks. That's great. Every offensive lineman that you cut knows that he needs to make that block. Every wide receiver knows that he needs to catch that pass. Every quarterback knows that he needs to not throw that interception, or he needs to throw a touchdown, or he needs to throw a completion. Every running back knows he can't fumble the ball. Tyler Bass knows that he needs to make those kicks. That was the response when asked about the status, situation, and the concern or emotional feeling, confidence level in Tyler Bass. Tyler knows he needs to make those kicks. I feel like that's more of an indictment on the Bills' inability to do anything to make a difference at that position than it is about a confidence announcement or broadcast in what they have in Tyler Bass. Tyler Bass is going to cost this football team this year one, maybe two football games. He almost did it last night. And it's not a matter of one or two that's the problem, right? It's a very much a question of when, which game, which game is he going to cost this football team? Is it a meaningless game in season, like versus an NFC opponent? So if the Bills, does he cost us a game against the 49ers where maybe the AFC East is locked up? Doesn't really matter from that standpoint because it's an NFC opponent. Who cares, right? So what? He cost us the game against the 49ers, but what if it's an in-season game against an AFC opponent where we're fighting for seedings, the playoffs, and home field advantage? What if he costs us a game then? What if he costs us a game in the playoffs? The Super Bowl? I mean, we're at a point we're at a point with this young man where he's lining up to kick a field goal. My mom is sitting on the couch next to me watching the game, and she's covering her eyes saying, I can't watch. My mom can't watch Tyler Bass kick field goals at this point because it's a little too nerve-wracking, right? And I don't have an answer for this question or this situation that I'm bringing up here in the aftermath. I don't know what the answer is. They have no cap room, and even if they did have cap room, who do you go get? I think the mistake was made in as much as they didn't bring any competition in for Tyler Bass to even put him in a situation where you're going to discover with pressure where he's at in his head with the yips with his foot. Because right now it very much looks like when the ball leaves his foot, he's not sure where it's going to go. Doesn't it feel that way? Versus like Harrison Butker, and I know Tyler Bass isn't Harrison Butker or Justin Tucker or somebody, Kaimi Fairbairn. When they kick the ball, it's like you know where the ball's going, and they know where the ball's going. It's a golfer situation. I'm in the zone. Everything in the body, everything in my motion is working perfectly. I know what's going to happen. And when Tyler kicks, it's just wild concern. The Buffalo Bills at this point with Tyler Bass, they're going to have to leave on the horse that they rode in on. Good, bad, do or die. The entire season may very well come down to the leg of Tyler Bass. And I guess the question is are we ready for that as a fan base? Where's it going to leave us? So wrapping up here on this episode of The Aftermath on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by Believe. The Buffalo Bills gutted it out against the New York Jets on Monday Night Football, and the W, as we talked about, is the only thing, the absolutely only thing that matters when it comes down to it. The schedule gets somewhat easier from here. There's a lot of season left. It is Victory Tuesday. Tomorrow is Victory Wednesday. It's a great victory week, and we've got a fun game coming up here in Buffalo at home this week against the Titans, a game that the Buffalo Bills right now, I think I heard, are the biggest favorites to win at 8.5 points. But at the end of the day, Bills Mafia, we are all in this together. I appreciate you guys hanging out and listening to me. So for the rest of this week for the Overreaction Sports Network, 8 o'clock Tuesday today, Matt Perino will be joining me from Syracuse.com and the Buffalo Shout podcast, one half of it. Matt Perino, 8 o'clock live on the beat. Wednesday, the John Fina Off Tackle with John Fina show is going to be live at noon on Wednesday Eastern Standard Time. These are all Eastern Standard Times as well. So Perino tonight on the beat, 8 o'clock. Tomorrow noon, John Fina Off Tackle. And then Wednesday as well, 8 o'clock. So we got double stack today, double stack tomorrow, Wednesday, 8 o'clock. The Hump Day Hotline. Jay Spencer King will be joined by Jerry Ostrowski, former Buffalo Bill Jerry Ostrowski. And then Thursday, we will be bringing you the Big O Show, where Jerry is going to give you the first look at the Titans, talk about his 3 keys of the game, which this week he was dead on. And then he'll have Dr. Brad Bowen once again to talk about injuries. But I appreciate all of you that have joined me and hung out with me here for a couple of minutes. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of this week. Enjoy Victory Tuesday, Victory Wednesday, as I said. Love you guys. We'll talk to you soon. Go Bills.